All right, let's bring it all in here. Find your seat. Good comments about how many people we got out of bed so early in the morning for an event. Must be a polarizing topic or something to bring people to want to learn a little bit. All right, I'm going to get started because we got a lot to cover. First of all, I just want to thank everyone for being here. C9 members, C9 supporters, guests. This is one of our, we felt this was a topic that we wanted to open to the public, so those of you that are guests of ours, welcome. And so I'm very happy to have a mix of very familiar faces and then a bunch of people I've never met before. So that is a sign of a good event. My name is Aaron Eggert. I am the founder and chief vision officer / community leader for Coalition 9. I'm also the executive director for our foundation. So if you ever want to learn anything about C9, pull me aside. Otherwise, ask somebody that you're sitting next to about the experience and things like that. Right over here is a sign of community supporters. Who in our group here is a community supporter? Could you stand up, please? Hello, Kyle. Yep. All right, we got a few here. So all those organizations help support our community, help make things like this happen. This is an event that we did not have sponsorships for. We're having both North Nord and Parallax be part of it because they're up here and they're dedicating their time to educate you on this topic. So thank you to our community supporters for making this stuff happen, these events, all of our programming, the member experience, everything like that. I also want to thank Forgotten Star. I don't even know if anybody from Forgotten Star is here. Maybe that's a good thing, because I haven't gotten an invoice yet. And so I think I don't know, maybe they're just going to let us use the space. So that's awesome. What I will say is Forgotten Star has been an awesome partner of ours. We usually do an event here once a year. If you are looking at using this space, I highly recommend it. Their team is awesome to work with. I also want to thank the people that we're going to have up here. I'm going to thank them again at the end, but the moment I kind of dreamed up this idea a year ago, I had these three people on my mind. I had just kind of met Jim. I had known Mike for years, and I had met Maggie a couple years ago, and their willingness to just throw their hands in the air and say, yep, let's dive in, was fantastic. And so they're going to come up here and share with you their perspective on a topic that some of you are super interested in, some of you have no idea about. I had a person that sent me a text and said, when is the THC event? Not close, but close. So again, that kind of shows some people are immersed into this world and have educated themselves on it. Some people have not, and this is the first foray into something that is really becoming a groundswell, especially on the coasts. If you go to the coasts, this topic is very prevalent. People are diving into it head first. Obviously, Colorado and Denver area is diving into it head first. It's coming here. They're going to talk about this a little bit. The timing of this is perfect because the state of Minnesota, House of Representatives just passed legislature for this to become a legal medicine to be used for PTSD, for mental health issues, for a lot of other things. So they'll dive into that. But the timing of this is really good. Without further ado, the format we're going to do here is we're going to bring these folks up here. We're going to spend about an hour doing a little bit of Q&A between them. We're going to break off into small groups, so we've got those tables there. We can make little semicircles here. I've got some conversation starters I'm going to put out. A big part of our events is that we don't want to just talk at you. We also want you to be able to converse within each other's small groups, learn about each other, gain different perspectives. Learning comes in a lot of different ways, so that's another way that we do it. Then we're going to bring everyone together. Let's keep these chairs all unstructured and a big mess in here, and then let's just ask some questions. I'd like to share some ahas, if you have any ahas that you got from your small group conversations, and then we'll wrap up and we'll have the space for another half an hour or so, okay? All right. First person I'm going to bring up here is Mike Jones. Mike and I have been friends for many years. We do love to do our walk and talks. He is our partner on the C9 Well series. Wellness has been a huge part of his life. he is specifically was the first person I called about doing this event to moderate it because of his experience with this and his knowledge in this, and then also just his personal opinion on it. So I'd like to welcome Mike Jones.
Thank you. This is mine. This is my camera. Hello, everyone. Oh, Aaron, don't do that. Thank you, my friend. It's good to see you all. Let me introduce and have Maggie and Jim come up. I'm going to have them introduce themselves, so go ahead and come on up, team. And please give them a warm welcome. And let me grab my notebook. Grab my notebook.
Hello, I'm Maggie, Maggie Kirkwood, and I am just really thrilled to be able to be here today and have this conversation. Aaron we've been talking about this for some time now, and it's so special to me to be able to speak about something that's been so beneficial to me, and just thrilled to be here, and thank you so much for coming.
Thanks, Maggie. Go ahead and take a seat. Welcome.
Hi.
Jim.
Hey. I'm Jim Mosher. I'm a clinical psychologist in private practice. I have two practices, one where I work just with therapists, therapy for therapists, another where I work with business executives and founders. And I'm here to talk along with Mike and Maggie. And my interests kind of get into the personal and professional, and both personal experiences, but also I see the healing potential of these medicines as well. So here to talk a little bit about that.
Welcome. Okay, so let's get things kicked off. If you all will, in a moment, look under your chair, you're gonna find a bag with 5 grams of mushrooms in it. Just kidding. Just kidding, it's not that kind of event. It's not kind of event. But if you want to partake, you're welcome to, by all means. Do whatever you want. This is a safe space. Just kidding, good icebreaker. Okay, so here's what I want to talk about why we're here, what the intention is, and then we'll get into just conversation with 2 people who I would consider to be experts in the space. My position here is as curious enthusiast. And so my background is I've been an entrepreneur for almost 20 years now, and I got exposed to psychedelics when I was 37. I didn't have any experience until I was 37. It was during a time when I was building 2 companies, I was going through divorce, I was having a hard time, and I tried mushrooms for the first time. And it really, really helped me. And it's something that I've been experimenting with from a therapeutic and recreational standpoint since then. And so that's who I am. I'm someone who enjoys experimenting with psychedelics. And that's one of the reasons why Aaron asked me to be the moderator. So, curious enthusiast, that's my role here. I think Jim and Maggie are in the position of experts who are also curious enthusiasts. So that's where we're at. And that's who we are and where we're kind of approach things, okay? And the intention is to educate everyone and give you nuggets, takeaways, potentially actions that you may want to take. You won't hear anyone here say, here's what I think you all should do. Here's what I think people should do. It would be different types of people. If they're curious, here's options, okay? So there's not going to be any kind of prescription or recommendation. Everything is just meant to be educational, okay? So from our first question standpoint, let's get started just getting to know our panelists. And so Jim, would you mind, Jim gave a brief background of what you do, but would you mind telling us why you're here, meaning what makes you interested in this topic in terms of psychedelics, other ways of altering how we think?
Sure. Let me put this down here. Oh, I could really nerd out on psychology and therapy if I wanted to, so I'll try not to. It's easy for me to go deep. But Psychedelics represent an emerging pathway for healing, from emotional problems and problematic experiences. And I think that because they've been illegal to this point and that is changing, they are not as researched as they could be. So we don't quite yet understand the processes that underlie or unfold while on different psychedelic medicines. But we do understand how change does occur more generally, both in therapy or through experience. And even this is kind of contested because psychology is what's called a pre-paradigmatic science. Does anyone know what that is or means? This philosopher named Thomas Kuhn wrote a book called The Scientific Revolution of Science or something. I can't remember the title. But in it, he outlined how science has progressed from immature, emerging fields into established, coherent fields of philosophy like physics and astronomy. And prior to establishment of a consensual understanding of how the field of study works, there's a lot of disagreement and varying theories. Psychology still has many different theories that are trying to explain what's happening. But one of the more emergent, newer theories is coming from neuroscience. It's something called memory reconsolidation. And that explains how change occurs bottom up and experientially rather than top down through thinking. Cognitive behavioral theory tends to be top down, like you understand why it works this way, and now you know you shouldn't feel that way, it doesn't make sense. Yet people still often tend to feel that way. Memory reconsolidation offers a different understanding of that. And in that, the idea is you activate the troubling emotional experience, you're upset, you're remembering what it was like. While you're reactivated, you encounter a new experience that is valid, but conflicts with the original experience. And when those two are brought to your awareness, you're like, I got this and I got that, they don't make sense, I have to think about that. And in the process of revising those two, you come to new conclusions that lead to profound, lasting bottom-up change. And I would argue that on psychedelics, there is the potential for that to occur because when people are on these substances, they often you're having a real experience, and in it, you're also having oftentimes a profound shift in perspective that leads to it. So that is the very long-winded scientific explanation as to why I'm interested in psychedelics and their potential for healing.
Awesome. And just, in your practice, do you use psychedelics for your patients, or is it just a matter of interest?
Yeah, I do not. I have research interests in this, but it's not legal yet, so I generally am using more traditional therapy methods to guide people to those sorts of change experiences. Great. They can also be done behaviorally.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, Jim's our science-based guy who can go as deep and geeky as we want. So if you want to go afterwards deep with Jim, he will go deep with you.
I'll go there.
Yeah, he'll go there. Maggie, can you give us your short history, why you're here? What makes you excited about the space?
I will sure do my best. Yeah, a little bit my background. I got married young. I'm going to start there. And just through my ex coming from Australia and our families never meeting and having a series of pregnancy losses and attempting to start a business together, we found ourselves just really escaping every moment. And I ended up escaping and really kind of spiraling and just found myself in a really dark time and turning to alcohol and hiding, sad, really, really sad, and feeling super isolated, like I had no one to talk to, nowhere to go, and that's when the mushrooms found me again. I had some experiences in college, but always recreationally. So for the first time, yeah, I was intentional, and I knew I wanted to, something had to shift. And I attempted to just try and quit drinking, I think, for 30 days or something. But before I knew it, yeah, I had a microdosing program just for 5 days. And within that 5 days, it was just this feeling of being supported and held. And like I said, I had been intentional. So my basic intention was mushrooms help me to feel normal without alcohol today. And I think over this 5-day period, it was just this unfolding of my relationship with my alcoholic father, his alcoholic father, just really understanding these patterns and behaviors, but all while feeling supported. I had so much shame. So anyway, it was like this, something just was flipped, and I realized I no longer need alcohol forever. I thought, why aren't we all kind of freaking out about this? My dad was in and out of sobriety for 20 years. So that was really just the tip of the iceberg for me. I really dove deep into, what alcohol was doing to my brain, and then looking at what fungus does to our brains. So I am a mushroom lover and believer, and I think it's such a beautiful, safe medicine that you can, if you're working intentionally and responsibly, it can offer so much. And I'm so privileged and honored to be able to work with it and talk about it.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing. So addiction is one of the major therapeutic use cases for psychedelics, and I want to talk about some of the other major therapeutic uses, and then we'll get into, for general population, what are the benefits and should we be using them in general. But first, Maggie, this is a very difficult question, or difficult task, but can you give us the 1-minute history of psychedelics in the US leading us up to the modern era of where we are today?
Yes, I'm going to do my best, always. I like to look at it as 3 waves. So we've got the first wave. I think there's some profound theories around ancient civilizations, possibly experimenting with fungus and plant medicines. And then we have the second wave, where perhaps it all went wrong with the Nixon era, just really banning psychedelics altogether. But after we had kind of invaded Mexico and Maria Sabina and found, this glorious magical thing, what is it? And then we bring it back to America, go crazy, and that's the ban. And that's why I believe big pharma steps in with their solution, because there were studies back in the second wave just showing benefits for mental health. But now we are in the third wave. I like to say it's kind of where science meets spirit. It's the unfolding of these past 2 waves and how to responsibly come together, knowing that this has been around for tens of thousands of years, knowing that as human beings, we have kind of lost touch of our humanity, and learning to take pause, and the medicine is just access to do that, if that's helpful.
I think that was less than a minute. Good job.
Thank you.
So recap, and I'm going to ask Jim, I'm going to ask you to jump into what are the modern therapies being tested, in the scientific community. But my recap, or way I see it, I love the 3 waves. So first wave, ancient up to whatever, 60s and 70s in the US. 60s and 70s, heavy mainstream use of psychedelics, and then things get made illegal and get pushed underground, leading us up to the past 20 years when scientific groups, led by Johns Hopkins University, is kind of the major institution, starting to do scientific studies that are approved by the federal government to the point where now it's becoming kind of mainstream-ish, and it's being talked about, tested, legalized in some states, but not federally. So that's kind of where I see it as we're at. So Jim, can you talk about some of the major therapeutic uses that are being tested from a clinical trial, just like what's going on in the world?
Yeah, and I'll I'll add on to what you said a little bit, if that's okay.
By all means.
You know, who knows what people know, so maybe I'm already telling you guys stuff you know. But LSD was originally a psychiatric medication. It was a therapeutic drug. MDMA was also a therapeutic drug or psychiatric medication. And they became street drugs, you know? So I always find it ironic we could live in a different timeline where people are taking acid and ecstasy in therapy. And Xanax is a street drug, although it kind of is right now anyway. But, you know, so there's just this fine line between, you know, what's a medication and what's a substance of abuse, and, you know, what's transformative and what is harmful to us. You know, I became a psychologist because I had a drug problem when I was young, you know, and I got to therapy and it changed my life, and I grew up quite a bit as a result, and I returned to those things in my 30s and early 40s, but it was more of out of a desire for personal growth and understanding, not like, you know, getting fucked up and having a good time. I wasn't interested in that at all, you know. I mean, I still like to have a good time, but I don't really care to get fucked up, quite honestly. You know, so yeah, so it's just, you know, like, there's just a fine line with all of these things. It's hard for me to talk about like therapies with psychedelics with any like precision, really. There's some stuff being done. I mean, the big thing is the one like legal contemporary pathway is ketamine-assisted therapy. Historically, there's been some research with DMT and ayahuasca and psilocybin. But a lot of like what we know about the healing potential for those things is more like anecdotal, you know. I can say as a clinician, you know, I've had a lot of people come in that are dabbling with these things and have had the sort of transformative experiences I talked about earlier, where they're having bottom-up, fundamental paradigm shifts in how they see the world and themselves. And again, that's what I'm always going for as a clinician, and I'm trying to do it behaviorally. There's no substances involved. I'm trying to, you know, have gotcha moments with people where, like, you know, and you see it differently, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. So I've had people tell me, like, you know, I've had this sort of experience, you know, with the substance, etc. But you also have to be careful. I've had a lot of people where it didn't go so well, you know. This is serious business. Yeah, so you just have to be careful, and that's why I'm not up here recommending anything. But in terms of therapeutic pathways, the best known and most common is ketamine. I think what Maggie is doing is really impressive. There are, you know, people doing some work with psilocybin, micro and macro dosing, but all of that is kind of off the books. There are some professional societies, the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies. Minnesota also has the Minnesota Society for Psychedelics, and these are professional pathways for researching and using these substances, but this is still, I think it's going to really start to move in the next few years, particularly with the recent legislation. So we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah. To add on to that, I would just say a lot of the federal studies going on are all clinical trial-based studies. Johns Hopkins has been doing multiple studies for the past 20 years. And so, to Jim's point, ketamine-assisted therapy is the only federally legal psychoactive therapy. I think ketamine would not be technically considered a psychedelic, but that's kind of an old term to begin with. Maggie, can you talk about some of the therapies that you specifically are using?
Yes, of course. So I've been working intentionally with psilocybin probably around 4 years now. I did recently start ketamine-assisted psychotherapy. Wow, where to start? You know, I think the most important piece with all of this is the, you know, being able to make sense of your experience and integrating it. And I think I'm going to start with ketamine quickly. Ketamine is legal, and I think that there's quite a different ways that it's offered. You can go into some clinics where you have your medicine essentially and then leave, or you can work directly and closely with a psychotherapist. And ketamine is beautiful for people who are treatment resistant. So for people who have been, on and off pharma meds, SSRIs, or they're not able to see the light in the day, it's kind of like an option that can provide almost instant relief for some of these people. And it's a safer medicine, meaning you can already be taking SSRIs and safely have a session. But ketamine is a disassociative. So you, at a high enough dose, essentially leave your body, and that's why you need to make sense of your experience.
And that's where I would say it's likely tapping into the reconsolidation process I spoke of earlier. It is a dissociative, so the person is having an out-of-body sort of different, like a perspective shifting experience, which can lead to those profound bottom-up changes.
Yes. I feel psilocybin at large doses, I wouldn't necessarily call it a disassociative. I feel, and I can only speak to my experiences, more a level of lucidity. You're not, in my experiences, I am not leaving my body. I'm having unreal experiences, but with all of it, it is such responsible work, so it's meant to be honored. So the illuminations or the insights or the knowings, the experiences that are happening to you, you're either gonna, honor that and kind of figure out how to embody or how to make sense of this into my daily life, or you kind of shove it down and you don't speak about it. And I spent about a year after stopping drinking. I had a very profound mystical experience. I couldn't tell anyone. I didn't, because you just, you feel like you're doing something bad. And ultimately, this is what has led to North Node, is just really, being able to have honest conversations about what the heck is helping us feel better. I'm so happy my business partner, Angie, is here today. She is someone, she had to take matters into her own hands with her health. It's a whole nother segment. But we found each other literally because this is medicine that literally has saved us. And I'm rambling at this point, but.
No, that was good. I want you to get into microdosing as well in a little bit, but so Maggie and Jim both talked about therapeutic uses, and I just want to list some of the other therapeutic uses that Johns Hopkins specifically has been studying for the past 20 years, which is smoking cessation, drug addiction and alcohol addiction, opioid addiction, depression, anxiety. Late-stage terminal cancer patients have been studied with high-dose psychedelics very effectively. Anorexia, PTSD. So those are just some of the ones that Johns Hopkins has studies, and there are many other studies going on. So, go ahead, Jim.
Well, I could jump in on that a little bit. And to expand the conversation, again, I'm intentionally being kind of generic up here. I don't want to strike too strong a position on any of this stuff, like as a licensed psychologist. But, so this is talking about like ketamine, psilocybin, and then like DMT or ayahuasca, and ibogaine. I think those are the big ones. Am I missing anything?
I don't think. Well, there's MDMA through MAPS.
Yeah.
So MAPS is an organization that's been studying MDMA for PTSD and for many years.
Probably ibogaine and ayahuasca, I think, are the biggest money ones with the most potential. Like just you hear profound stories of what happens, but oftentimes it's around PTSD, addiction, and then also like end of life, like meaning making and confronting death and those sorts of things. I think those are the big ones.
Yeah, agreed. And so I kind of wanted, so those are the therapeutic uses, which, we all have our own issues. Some people have therapeutic needs. And so I would, just as the moderator, encourage you all to get educated and research if there's any therapeutic use case that might benefit you. For the for this group in general, I kind of want to steer towards the general population of busy business leaders who have young kids who are super stressed out and living their life. And, life is stressful, but just kind of like regular people. And so my question, and what I'm most curious about, is should people like me try psychedelics? And I would just love anybody to riff on it.
I think that the proof, the research, we know about the healing powers with psychedelics, and it's so beautiful, and it's also so private and personal. So I think people and their own healing journeys are never ending and ever evolving, and that's I kind of like lump that here. And then I look at psilocybin is my girl, and I think about how beautiful psilocybin is because it's full spectrum. So we get really caught up between microdosing, macrodosing, but I think it's ultimately learning to work with the medicine is really figuring out, a dose that doesn't make you intoxicated. But it's about these, to me, there's so much power in numbers and coming together and cultivating energy. And again, like really talking about altered states, not even using medicine, theta state, meditation, the things that we can do in groups and small groups, and just a little bit of medicine. And if you don't want it, you don't need it. But it's just this idea that there's a lighter, brighter conversation around community, and we don't, it doesn't, healing is always going to be there. It's always going to be there, but how can we cultivate and how can we get creative? And just small perception shifts, can make a deck a whole lot brighter.
Should we all get high? Is that what you were asking?
I mean, you could put it that way if you want.
I think he was asking if we should all get high. No, I don't know. Let me think here. I had a lot of thoughts. I'm trying to gather them. So, shit, talk is cheap. These are great, important conversations to have. Y'all would have to figure out how to do it and get there, right? That's not my problem. It's yours you have to find your dealer. But DMT specifically do you know what its nickname is? Or do you know what
the God molecule?
Spirit molecule.
Spirit molecule.
But that's the Strassman stuff. But do you know how it's referred to? Do either of you know? DMT is called the business trip.
Oh, I think I have heard that.
Yeah,
I like it.
So it's very in vogue in Silicon Valley with the tech bros and stuff. But it's called the business trip because it lasts about 15 minutes. You have an otherworldly experience in which you feel completely sober. You're entirely sober, and people I describe it as it feels realer than real. And so you have this very profound, unreal experience, and you're totally sober. It lasts about 15 minutes, and you're not hungover at all. And it's very interesting. And so when I started experimenting with that stuff, again, it was like consciousness exploration for myself. I mean, I could talk to you guys for hours about how I think reality probably works after those experiences. And I'm not joking. I'm not joking. I'm very serious. So then, I'm not a chemist either. I'm just, what's the saying, Glenn, help me. I know enough to be dangerous, maybe. But I think that DMT, I said this to you, I think it's like one chemical bond different from psilocybin. So the experiences feel similar. I don't know if you guys have experience with that, but they feel similar. There's a lot of oftentimes visual patterns. It's like Egyptian hieroglyphic, neon kind of stuff.
I have more experience with DMT 5-MeO, which is definitely very different from DMT.
I'm 5-MeO as well. Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
I think that, again, those are both very, very powerful medicines, and you would likely want to find a guide or a
So that's
coach.
where I was going. Yeah.
And
So I would never do this alone. You want
Yes.
to have someone with you. You want to research what the I feel you want to research what the process is like. And I think we talked a little bit about this. You have a process you walk people through a lot. There is a research basis around like how to establish the setting, like sounds.
Absolutely. I think where I'm gonna just kind of interject is, so I am a psilocybin practitioner, so I do have quite a bit of study and time into psilocybin, and what I've learned, or what I've been taught, is if you look at all these beautiful plant medicines, almost like a tree, you've got ayahuasca, that's a grandmother vine, and you've got ibogaine, which is an African tree root, and very, very powerful, and grandfather vine. Then the mushrooms are considered the grandchildren because they're very playful, and you can ask them questions and have them take you somewhere. And so I feel the beauty of working with psilocybin, low dose, there's a lot of self-discovery, and I think why not? I mean, we all have free will. If we want to figure out ourselves a little bit more, maybe we should be allowed to do so. But again, low dose, right? That's where you're not feeling much intoxication at all. If anything, you should be able to go rollerblading or go to the gym or do all the things that you normally do. That is very different than when we're talking about higher doses. And so I think, again, these medicines, if you kind of look at them as a tree, the higher, the DMT, ibogaine, ayahuasca is kind of at the top of this tree. And the mushrooms are really at the bottom, and playful and supportive and beautiful.
I like that analogy, the tree. So we got macro and micro is kind of what I'm hearing. And then from what I hear from both of you is, if you're gonna experiment with a macro dose of one of these medicines, do it with an experienced and professional guide. Is that a good way of putting it?
Yeah, for me, these are very serious experiences. I could never abuse these substances. They're not abusable in my, well, people do, but it's just profound, serious business. Yeah, I don't do it alone.
Agreed. I think, there is beauty in a mid-level dose. I like to call a mid-level experience a museum dose, because I feel that I am still capable of walking and socializing, but I'm a little bit more introspective and just checking out some art, but then at the end I might want to hug, I don't know. But again, it's, very different. And some people might have a mid-dose and respond to it as a heroics dose, right? So the most important piece behind all of it is just really, anytime you're having any amount, is to really just feel safe. It's all about trying to maintain being regulated. So if you are going to be sitting with 7 grams, hopefully you've taken time to prepare for this amazing, profound thing that you're going to enter. And you realize that the journey begins literally after that experience, because you have to make sense of it, you have to integrate, you have to learn, you have to, not create psychosis, you have to be safe. So through all of it, it really is, it's so cliche, but you hear it all, set and setting, it really truly is. Even at your first dose ever, it's, you wanna feel good taking it. You want to believe that this medicine is here to support you and help you, and be open to what it's going to offer you.
Raise your hand if you're not familiar with the term set and setting. Can you explain that term for us? I just want to make sure.
Set and setting. Oh, it's just real simple. Just, really honoring that you are going to be working with psilocybin, and especially if we're talking beyond a micro dose, you're going to be very thoughtful. to me, I like to think about where would I not like to be. So if I'm, sitting with a mid or a large dose, I am not going to be sitting down at a restaurant. I like to be in my bed. I really do. I like to be as comfortable as I possibly can. I do not like to sit on my back. I'm moving around. I'm dancing. You're crying one moment, you're laughing the next, it's a journey. So you're packing for a trip and you're gonna set yourself up for success. Or that's what I preach to my people.
Yeah, and it's the idea that you are just trying to facilitate or establish the conditions around you to ensure you're gonna be likelier to have a good experience. So your mindset and the setting around you to facilitate, a good
Thank
trip.
You. Yes,
yeah,
yes.
No problem.
Thank you.
And I would just, it makes sense for me to share this. I could share just a little tiny kind of personal experience as an example. I really haven't touched this stuff in a while. That's just where life is, and that's okay. But when I last did, this is like probably 6 years ago or so, 7. Or one of the times around that time, I just did a very mild DMT experience, let's say. Yeah. I always trip up MEO, and ayahuasca is DMT. Okay, and 5-MeO is the vape.
Well, 5-MeO is bufo.
No. Yeah. Okay. Yes. No for me.
Oh.
Yeah.
You did not partake in bufo, or you had a synthetic 5-MeO experience, synthetic pen? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. So
anyway, mild experience, but in that, that doesn't matter. I don't think. I'm not enough of a junkie to get my drug names right. Sorry. Yeah. In my mild experience, was just a touch of an experience, and I was so grateful I had it. My dog Carter was laying on the bed next to me, and I had this mild experience, and I looked at him, and it was just this mild perspective shift, where I'm like, he's not just like this fucking dog. He is just like this creature, just like me, who's been on this journey, this life journey for 14 years. He's been my partner through a third of my life. And it's just oh my God, it's not a dog, it's like Carter, this being, And then he died 2 weeks later. And I was just so grateful to have had that experience, So that's just a simple example of how that perspective shift can change. And I just touched that perspective for 10 seconds. I can't even get back there now, but I just it was just a wisp of an experience, and I touched it, and I was like, oh, look at Carter. He's this being with me. But I had it, and now I know it. And that's just a really kind of simple, and I don't know what your experiences are, but that's a nice little, for me, a representation of what it can be like.
I think that's a beautiful example of something that you gleaned, and how special the timing, especially, to me that there's a little magic behind that, but something that you were to carry forward, and because you had that experience, and honor that feeling and that kind of that essence, what.
Yeah, I can't still feel it, but I can remember it, and that's enough,
Okay. Yeah, so for me, in my experiences, I feel, especially with psilocybin, very somatic. So it's not so much up in here. It's your mind. Science shows us psilocybin disrupts our default mode networks. Default mode network, yes. So that's just kind of the identity, the patterns, the thoughts, the thing on repetition on here that never shuts up. That kind of is disrupted, and it's more about, for me, the rememberings aren't necessarily, they're feelings, and they're kind of just hard to put into words, ineffable, and there are definitely, I do say there's mushroom messages all the time. The mushrooms literally were like, Maggie, you never need alcohol again, it's poison. That's something that's happening, but also you're kind of like reliving experiences emotionally. And I think like the whole thing to all of this is, for me, you know, it really did take me psilocybin. I was so lost. My light had been so dimmed, and I was kind of like walking around on autopilot, not even realizing how sad I was. I was crying all the time. I just didn't even know it. And I kind of like, psilocybin just kind of like snapped me out of it, but also just helped me to feel connected again, not only to like the life and everything, but to myself. So I think like it's, with psilocybin, you know, it is not physically addictive. It is something where you, I believe, can take the medicine, and the medicine kind of provides you what you're needing. And if you can believe in that, you know, you can say goodbye for whatever it is. And it's the medicine has helped me like through addiction, through working out my divorce, just having hard conversations that nobody can have, nobody can figure out. Well, who's going to do it? Maggie and the mushrooms. And then, you know, I just, you went through the list of, you know, we're talking anorexia, PTSD, you know, all, it's so many things. Yeah.
Thank you. Maggie, you mentioned the default mode network, which is a term that neuroscience does use, so it's a scientific term. And when I think about my experiences and I hear your experience and others' experiences of using psychedelics, I hear reset, refresh, recentering, grounding, you know, many different ways to describe something that is indescribable. Jim, what do you think's happening in the brain? Don't get too geeky. What's happening to the brain when we take psychedelics, and why does it help us?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I have to think about that one. That's a good question. I mean, I think we have theories, but what's happening in the brain? So again, for me, I would say that it is a reconsolidation process, and I will get a little bit geeky.
A little bit's great.
God, like, I could get really geeky. So when we have experiences, today we have a series of experiences, and they go into our working memory, and then when we sleep at night, they are consolidated. Memories are consolidated when we sleep. So, if you're in college cramming for a test, don't cram until 3 a.m. Cram until 10 o'clock and get some fucking sleep, because you're not going to remember it, most likely. So our memories consolidate while we're sleeping. And it was long thought that once memories were consolidated, they could not be unconsolidated. There's this old adage called Hebb's Law, neurons that wire together, fire together. So, but when you look at, I have to really think here, neurons have dendrites. There's axions and then dendrites, like these, like, you know, these, you've probably seen the pictures, like these tree roots that come together. And when you reactivate an experience and you're really reliving it, those actually open up and they become open. They deconsolidate. It's called the reconsolidation window. So I think that when people are on psychedelics, they are having a deconsolidation experience where their neurons are literally opening up to new experiences. That's what's happening. And I don't know enough about, there's just so much stuff right now, but like when you look at, there's a lot of research being done with psilocybin specifically and mushrooms because of their neurogenerative properties, you know? So I think we're starting to finally open the doors to converge on some firmer understandings of what's occurring.
Yeah, and I can speak to what happens when we consume psilocybin. It turns to psilocin, which then interacts with our serotonin receptors, specifically the 5-HT2A. But yeah, it's definitely playing around with serotonin. And that's, I was going to say, you know, many of my clients, we've been realizing after a profound breakthrough experience, it's a really beautiful time to implement microdosing. because studies also show us that after a larger dose psilocybin experience, our brains enter with psilocybin a 2 to 3 week period, which is called the critical learning period. So another way to try and honor your experience, remember it, and for the following weeks, that's the work.
How much time do we, are we rushed? Do I have a few minutes?
How much time we got? 10?
Okay, so I'll take a couple minutes to unpack this, and I'll try not to mess it up. So when you look at I'm going to hold what you said, let's come back, I'm going to set us up to understand that, and I'm going to establish a context first. When you look at the reconsolidation research, I'm just going to kind of invent an example, but the example captures what the research is saying. They would take 100 rats and expose them to a blue light and then shock them. I'm making up the details, but that's the gist of it. And then you go back a day later and you flash the blue light and you see a jump response. So therefore we have established that these rats have learned that blue light means shock. It's consolidated. And then there are certain chemicals that they would administer. Anisomycin was the main one that's often used, but these are toxic chemicals that humans can't take. But they would then take half of those rats and administer anisomycin, and they would take half of the rats and expose them to the blue light and administer anisomycin. And then you go back a day later and you expose them to the blue light again. And the rats that were given the drug without exposure still showed the shock reaction. The rats that were exposed to the blue light and given the drug did not. So it established that exposure to the stimulus opens up the neurons for new learning. And once open, interfering with those neurons could disrupt the old learning, right? So this drug that's known to, what they would do is, before even doing any of that, you would just expose the rats to the blue light, shock them the first time, give the drug, and they wouldn't show the response the next day. The learning did not occur. The drug interfered with the encoding of the learning. So, coming back to what you were saying, this is where, it's the Wild West out there, in my opinion, with this stuff. It's really not been researchable. And then, personally, I started to get involved and I backed off because there's such a push for making this pharmaceutical, and I just don't want any part of that, right? So when you're talking about the critical period and learning, I think that's what is being captured in the brain. It's the opening of the reconsolidation window, and then the introduction of these chemicals plays a role in updating old memories through new experiences that occur while on the chemicals.
Beautifully stated. Yeah, I think you did a great job there. It's all so ineffable as it is, so anytime we can try and make sense of what the heck is going on. But again, I think just the common theme is because it's so much to take in, and it is quite a bit, just really, being responsible and continuing the conversation. I always say, you can go to yoga class or you take a walk and have a profound realization, with no medicine, nothing, and it's all deserving of, being digested and shared, if that might be the case. But yeah, I think all of this is just really just being honest about what we're needing to feel better, and just having more access to alternative ways and methods.
Yoga classes and walks are great.
Say it again.
Yoga classes and walks are great. And that led to my next question, which is, do I have to take psychedelics? Are there other what ways can I get the benefits without taking any of these psychedelics, if any?
Yeah, for me, meditation is an absolutely paramount part of my life, and it is so simple, I think, that we get a little worked up. I used to be one of them. I would make fun of people when I saw them meditating. And for me, it started real simple. Just even before I get out of bed, before I reach for my phone, before I do anything, I'm usually in a pretty, anxious state when I wake up. I don't feel well, but I really have to take about 3 minutes just to do nothing. Close my eyes, feel safe, feel regulated, just before I'm going to start my day, just something like that. And ultimately, that's just really led to me honoring how good I feel when I meditate, and getting out in the sun and doing it, at work, drop and meditate. But yeah, that's one way that I feel I can feel connection. If I'm worked up, if I've gone off the edge, I can simply close my eyes, take a minute, breathe, and feel a little bit better.
Aaron, if I'm talking too much, throw a bagel at me, okay? Bagel? I don't even know anymore. I have a pro-therapy bias. I think therapy has the ability to get people there. Those are the sorts of experiences that I try to facilitate for people I work with. But I think we can also do it for ourselves, and I think that involves, so again, like in the reconsolidation research, like going to the research, it's like reactivate the experience, while reactivated, encounter what is called a mismatch experience or a prediction error. Notice the difference between these two experiences, and then you have to kind of reconcile those. We have mismatch experiences every day, every one of us. And what we do is we ignore them and we downplay them and dismiss them. And I'm just going to invent, I'm just improvising up here. I'll invent a simple example, like what happens is we have our experiences throughout our lives, and through that we construct an understanding of who we are and what we are, and that limits us in many ways. So I don't, but let's pretend I think I'm like fat and I'm ashamed of my body. And I see Aaron, and Aaron says, "Jim, you look nice today." And I say, or I say, "He doesn't really mean that. He's just being nice. I know I don't look good today." Right there's a mismatch experience. He's telling me what he thinks, and generally I err on the side of, if people tell me something, I believe them. I don't think people go to their way to deceive us and lie to us. So if they say something to me about me, I think they probably mean it. So if he says I look nice, he probably thinks I look nice. And if that conflicts with how I see myself and I dismiss it, I am dampening the opportunity for change and updating my story about myself by, just taking in what he's saying. So so prior to psychology, I was a music composition major, and I'll spare the backstory, but I had a really profound experience during a bass lesson one day where someone said, "Oh, you sounded really good last week." And I was like, I made a mistake. What are you talking about? And he said, "Well, I thought you sounded good. I just thought about that." And so at that point in my life, I said, from now on, when people say something nice to me, I'm just going to say thank you and look them in the eye and shake their hand. And that fucking changed my life. And so I think that there's a chance for all of us in our lives, if we just pay attention, there's mismatch experiences every day, get good at spotting them, and then like taking them to heart and sitting with them rather than brushing them off. The end.
Nice.
No bagels have flown my way. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Talk therapy, meditation, going for walks, self-care, exercise, deep connection with friends, all of these things I think are in the realm of how we take care of ourselves, how we reset. And this conversation is mostly related around psychedelics and how they can fit into it. I'll just share my personal belief and philosophy is I do all those things extensively. I think of myself as I've been pushing the envelope for a lot of years now in terms of taking care of myself. And with that being said, I've been building my own businesses full-time since 2009. I have 5 kids. I'm very busy. Life's stressful. The world sometimes feels like it's falling apart, yada, 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 which some of you may be able to relate to. And for me, all those things work. And I would love to have more time to go and do like a yoga retreat or do a silent meditation for a week, but I don't. If I go on vacation, it's gonna be with my kids, and it's not particularly restful. And so for me, like a one day, go out with my closest friends and partner and do an MDMA experience with a guide is and has been one of the most profound and meaningful experiences that I've ever had for my self-care and personal well-being. So that's my experience. It's worked great for me. I'm not a year in, so it's been a while. So that's just my experience, where I think of it in terms of, yes, all the things work that we should be doing, and this is also a great tool in my toolkit. So that's how I think of it. Go ahead, Jim.
You said it's not particularly restful. So it's not just me that sometimes looks forward to Monday?
No.
Okay.
Not just you. Not just
Thank you.
you.
I feel validated.
Okay, so I'm gonna bring this thing home, and we're gonna do breakouts. But my last question, and then we're gonna have Q&A at the end, and then we're all available. These are the experts. If one should want to start and dabble or experiment, where should one go? Panelists.
I'll take it. Thankfully, I am so excited. My cultivator, my local trusted resource cultivator. So let me back up. I was too excited here. North Node came together. It's been about a 3-year kind of mission trying to figure out how do we do what we're trying to do in this space. And North Node came together. I said, my beautiful business partner, Angie, is here today. And we are a private educational association. And the focus is just on more accessible education, integration, and community. And that's where we're at. With that, North Node does not provide any substances, but we work with trusted local cultivators. And I have Byron in the back here who's here, and we're just kind of making a responsible partnership. So if people have questions on how to kind of continue the work, absolutely reach out, and we're here to one conversation at a time. Really, here to help.
I'm a kid of the 90s, so buy a pager, find a dealer.
Love it. Pager first.
You definitely need a pager.
Awesome.
I couldn't not, I'm sorry.
And then a plug for therapeutic uses within our group. One of my small peer group bros, Charlie Shupp, and his partner Fred, who's a new C9 member, they run Sonder Behavioral Healthcare, which offers ketamine-assisted therapy, among other novel treatments for anxiety, depression, therapeutic uses. Okay, so that's someone within your community who is an expert who you can talk to, who knows more than, he's forgotten more than I know about all this stuff. So I would encourage you to talk to Charlie if you're curious as well. I'm happy to talk to anyone. Charlie's here. Stand up, Charlie. Stand up, Charlie. There he is. Look at that handsome guy. What's our group called? I forget. The Stokers, the best C9 group. He is a cornerstone member of the best C9 group. Okay, so it's time to transition, not wrap up. Okay, so we're gonna move into some small groups just to share.
Psilocybin, 1 teaspoon is about 1 gram. 1 gram is my kind of museum dose, mid dose. Do I feel intoxication? Yes. It's not a microdose. A microdose is closer to a 1/4 gram. But this 1 gram is where I'm just starting, so we can kind of visualize. When you're talking microdoses, you know, everybody is so different and everybody is so differently sensitive. So I like to say, you know, a microdose doesn't really last. You shouldn't be feeling much. It's meant to be, it's sub-perceptual. If anything, you feel like a gentle hug, I don't know, from the universe, but nothing's lasting other than this wonderful, mild hug, maybe for an hour and a half, 2 hours. When we're talking about mid-dose, 1 gram and up, 1 gram is going to sit with me for at least 3.5, 4 hours. 3 grams is going to be 4 to 7, 5 and up, an all-night thing. But the after part, or the after time, so yeah, these journeys, 1 gram and up are going to be a significant amount of time. And then, the come down is pretty simple, and I think a lot of people, it's just about honoring your experience again. So where you can go wrong is have a deeper experience and get back to work the next day. Give yourself 24 hours to just chill and remind yourself, write about, envision. I listen to music, I'll replay that music the next day and just really kind of keep it, top of mind for the next few weeks. Because with psilocybin, we do have a 2 to 3 week kind of critical learning window period, if that helps.
Helpful, Tom?
Yes.
Awesome. Go ahead.
I have a question. So, you talk about that critical learning period after, I think about plasticity and how do we keep our learning curve is big and open as we can as we age, because oftentimes we get patterns. They talk about as you get older, you're learning things and the experiences you're making just naturally shifts. And so how does this process help with that, or does it? And if so, is that work kind of after you go on your journey, and that make any sense?
Yeah, you are. So in terms of neuroplasticity, which is the brain's ability to change and learn, correct? Pretty decent way to explain that. What do y'all think? Do these medicines help?
I feel like neuroplasticity is something that's always happening, right? However, I think that, it's kind of this trending word, right? There's many activities that offer enhanced neuroplasticity, and I think cold plunge might be one, right? For me, I really just like to think about this medicine more regarding the default mode network. So my constant negative thought loops, which I'm working very hard daily with or without medicine to really change, this constant thing, all of these things that I grew up with, learning and programs, conditionings, reworking some of that, right? And so instead of focusing on the neuroplasticity, I'm thinking about the disruption. What parts of my brain are now speaking to each other that haven't been kind of sort of situation.
I don't have a position on psychedelics and neuroplasticity. Dr. Jim Mosher doesn't have a position on that. But neuroplasticity, so again, and then, I've heard that term, but I'm not in your world in the way that you are, so you're saying, the term you're using is critical learning period, is that what it is?
Correct.
Okay. I don't know more about that. And so again, for me, memory reconsolidation theory undergirds everything, how I think about almost everything. That's my lens, that's my fundamental lens for thinking about the work I do, but also how I perceive reality more generally. And so in that terminology, it's the idea of what's called the reconsolidation window, which I mentioned earlier. The reconsolidation window is open 4 to 24 hours. I don't know how that idea interacts with what the critical learning window, but I would imagine there are probably similar processes, but I don't know. But neuroplasticity is a phenomenon is something we can do for ourselves every day. And we do that by intentionally cultivating novel experiences. Violating expectations. Like the generic example I hear is like, brushing your teeth with the other hand, right? But so we facilitate ongoing neuroplasticity throughout the lifespan by being dedicated to creating novel experiences for ourselves. It's very easy to get into routines, and disrupting those routines creates opportunities for ongoing flexibility.
Can I just throw, something just popped in my head. How many people here, once per day, try something new? That just is intentionally, I'm trying something new today that is going to kind of shake me up a little bit. Or just, brush your teeth.
So,
like a self-law. I'm a right-hander. If I brush my teeth with my left hand, how many people do that intentionally once a day? Okay, that's a big. That is that I think kind of sets the tone for how you're answering this. Is that I just had to say something because it's I think we as humans, we just are so routine driven. You wake up, you do this. I even asked that question in my podcast. What's your morning routine? These people can rattle that off it's the same thing every morning. And I think that there's some things in neuroplasticity that it doesn't have to be medicine. It doesn't have to be anything.
Exactly.
It can be things that are very mundane. That instead of just driving the same way home every day, because that is the way you drive home every day, I'm going to take this exit here and I'm just going to go drive this way. That literally opens your mind up to different experiences. So, I think it's as simple as doing something like that, or it can be as extreme as doing some of the things that we're talking about earlier in this. It's just my challenge to you is try to do something that pushes you out of your comfort zone a little bit.
Thank you. Thank you. We should give you a mic. So that's exactly it. Thank you for being more pragmatic. Myself, I'm unfortunately a very fastidious person. I hate to be married to me, honestly. I will do things. I do this I come into the house and I throw my shoes on the floor rather than put them down nicely. I force myself to get uncomfortable and disrupt my own routines because I know that doing that is good for me and it's good for all of us. So I would say look for opportunities where you have your own patterns and commit to just disrupting them to get out of your comfort zone and creating experiences for yourself.
I mean, one to do from walking. If you could walk away with anything today, maybe educate yourself a little bit on some of the topics we had earlier, but maybe try something new, right? Maybe it's a 1 week period from this point over to next Wednesday at this point. Try one new thing a day intentionally. That right there could have a direct impact on your neuroplasticity.
Just to bring it home, the question was about do psychedelics help neuroplasticity, correct? And I'm an idiot, I don't know anything. Everything I know is from the Andrew Huberman podcast, which is a great podcast and he's well researched. That and general reading, and I would say the answer is scientific community, there's many who think that it does. Psychedelics help with neuroplasticity, and there are studies going on right now related to, the biggest one that comes to mind is DMT and mushrooms separately for CTE, for traumatic brain injury, because there's theories that it literally can help regrow neurons.
The neurogenerative properties.
So I would say the answer is unknown, and there's lots of scientific community that think it does. My anecdotal, I think for sure, yes, it aids in neuroplasticity. Sorry, was that good discussion of the question? Awesome.
Me?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. It's been great. I heard a couple of things earlier when you guys were answering the question. Maggie, at one point you said something like, you just don't want to get into psychosis. And then at the beginning you said that you had clients and people show up for had bad experiences with insurance. So can you talk to us, some of my curiosity about this is tempered a little bit by those
should everyone try this question? And what's the downsides and risks?
Want me to start?
Yeah, you can go first.
Well, I think that everyone's biggest fear, it seems, would be probably starting, when I was young, seeing eggs being fried at the DARE program, and if you take LSD, you're going to jump off a balcony and you're going to die, and so I think that there are people who definitely have clinical mental health diagnoses, and I have been trained, I definitely ask, and that is, to be determined if we'll work together or not, but absolutely any sort of, diagnosis, mental health diagnosis needs to be discussed, and I think that people are so worried that these medications, they're just not gonna snap out of it, right? They're gonna be tripping for the rest of their life. I think that this all boils down to the preparation, the information, the exchange of knowing. Everybody is so different, it really is very individual work. So, there are cases of people who have had these terrible, terrible experiences where they feel like they're in a state of psychosis. And I think you have some stories and some stuff to share there.
I have a lot of stories. So to be clear, I am here talking about what I know about how we think, how we might change, speculating on how psychedelics might interface with that. But I'm not recommending anyone do anything, to be clear. Dr. Jim Mosher is not recommending anyone do anything. That's a personal decision people can wrestle with for themselves. Clinically, I don't think everyone should do this. And whether you're one of those people or not, I don't know. But I have, I've worked with a lot of people with a lot of different problems. And, there are those people, I'm being kind of generic here, but might develop a drinking problem, let's say. And they realize they have a drinking problem, and then they stop it, and they get a grip on it, and they can go on to live a life where they have drink on occasion. It's not a big deal. And there are those people that develop a drinking problem who I don't think should ever have another drink again for as long as they live. There's just different groups of people. And these sorts of things are similar. I've had a lot of clients who have very disturbing, upsetting experiences because they have played with these things, and they do not go well for them. And I have known people that have reported to me having transformative experiences. And which one you'll be, I have no idea. It's hard to know. And this stuff, if people choose to explore these things, it's serious business, But it's smart to be thinking about that. And anytime I've done these things, I go in feeling a little scared because I don't know how it's going to go. Because people can have transformative experiences that are utterly terrifying.
Can I just share a little bit real quickly? I have many friends, and I have a podcast, it's called Minds on Mushrooms. Many people reach out wanting to share, either this profound experience, and sometimes they want to talk about their bad trip and how to avoid having that again, right? And I've come to learn, I don't really define a trip as bad or good. I think a more fair word would be informative. Some of my trips are very cathartic, and I'm crying for several hours. Does that sound fun? Is that, is that bad? Is that scary? Is that gross? So for me, it's cathartic. But for my twin brother, he'd probably, slap me. That's the last thing he'd want to do. So,
and I'm not trying to be difficult here, okay? I agree that what you said, I think that's true. If you just go to the literature, you can buy Rick Strassman's book, The Spirit Molecule, which is the earliest, have you read it, Mike? Have you read it? That's the earliest, official sort of research in DMT. And they describe in detail some of the experiences people have while on DMT, and they are not good. And you have to have, but everyone in his study was very experienced psychonauts, and so they were prepared to handle negative experiences, but they can happen. So I'm not trying to say be afraid of it, but it's just not all it's not all upside. It can be complicated, and if a person gets into this and they're having an experience like that, it can happen,
My question is there any potential long-term health consequences from psychedelics? Like, you can have a bad trip and it's a bad experience, but is it detrimental to your health long-term? I guess is what I'm saying.
I think that's what we're trying to figure out right now. I think that there's some studies out there. There might have been something I read about somebody's vision was somehow altered or affected by a large dose of psilocybin experience. But I think this is why we are trying, we're trying to figure it out right now. I just go back to the tens of thousands of years of history and feel pretty darn good about it.
Yeah, I lean towards it's mostly upside, but I think, again, it's important to be informed and aware of the downside. And I'll just speak again, as a psychologist, I've had people come in and they have bad trips and they spend a lot of the next months of their lives talking about what happened, and it opens something up. That doesn't happen a lot, but it happens, And sometimes people have bad experiences, and it takes some time to integrate what that meant and its impact on them.
I just wanted to reiterate, we're talking about all sorts. Jim was just talking about DMT, right? I'm speaking primarily about psilocybin. I just cannot reiterate enough how psilocybin it's so full spectrum, because you can start the smallest of the small, low and slow, right? And then work your way. And it's all about learning how to work with medicine.
Thanks, Sean. I'm going to bring it home on this question, which is the health risk. I think everyone here, all three of us, are pretty aligned, which is there's definitely risk to taking any psychoactive substance, and you should do your own research. And there are certainly people who should not take them. People who have clinical diagnoses. There's some that can have really strong negative effects. And I like the way Jim kind of closed it. My humble opinion is the upside is generally greater than the downside, but there's risk to everything, to the extent that, raise your hand, don't raise your hand, but raise your hand if you've had a traumatic THC experience by taking a gummy that was too strong.
Almost near death.
Yeah, and then obviously alcohol, some people can handle alcohol for their whole lives, and some people, the first time they have a sip of alcohol is going to send them down a path. So that's my general opinion. But yeah, certainly there's risk to everything. Do your own research. So it is time for us to wrap up. I'm going to pass it over to Aaron, and I'd like to thank you all for your deep attention, and thank our panelists. This was awesome.
Like I said earlier, Mike jumped on this as soon as I dreamed of this idea last year. Maggie was one of my first calls as well, just because of her, the effort that she's put into this. And then Jim, we've built a good relationship. He's a C9er, and then also just the background that he's got with all this. It just kind of came together really nicely. What I do love about this is that I think you guys even hopefully, I hope you felt this. There's a little bit of there's a healthy competition there, right? And by competition, I mean thought process and competitive thought process. That's what I think makes things like this really good, is that you're going to get competing thoughts that are going to help you create perspective, and no one should be able to walk out of here with the full answer for themselves. You're either going to be yeah, that's something I think I'm going to look into a little bit, or you're going to walk away with it and be I'm going to stick my head in the sand on this one a little bit, and we're going to ride it out. And I'm okay with that. And there is no right or wrong answer to any of those things. And that's why this event was very important from a C9 Law perspective, is that when you start hearing about things and so many people in our community are talking about this, I just want to tackle it head on and just let's talk about it. And it was a great small group environment. It was super fun to see the small groups have some conversations about that. So thank you very much. Thank you again to our panelists. Both of their logos are there. If you're interested in talking with Maggie more about her business and the way that she prescribes this, go for it. If you'd like to talk to Jim about maybe some skill therapy or some C-suite work, that's a big part of what he does. Not only the therapist for therapists, so you can talk to him as well. I also want to thank Forgotten Star. They were a great partner here. This is a great space. Let us do whatever we wanted to do here. That's awesome. I want to thank our community supporters again for making this happen. So if you do see a community supporter when you're kind of wrapping up here, make sure to thank them because they're a big part of how we can put this stuff on. I want to thank Emily and Brenda. Emily, Brenda on our team, they crushed every time. This was the tee up on this, the marketing and the communication on it. The amount of people that we have that are both C9ers and non-C9ers is a big indicator around the work that she's doing, and then Emily executing on the event. I do have to do one thing here. Can we all just yell a big happy birthday to my brother? My brother Brian is here, never comes to events, so it's his birthday today. What a better event to come to. So happy birthday, Brian, yeah? All right, I was gonna have you guys sing, but that sucks. All right, a couple of upcoming events. June 16th is our next event. It's called Safeguarding Business Technology. It's a jam session. Everybody's welcome to this. Tell your friends. We're going to have space for 100. We're doing it at Loeffler Companies. We're primarily partnering with Loeffler Companies and MyTech Partners. So bringing a couple of the two most powerful MSPs in the Twin Cities together to deliver some really great programming. And so I'm pumped about that. July, we're kind of locking in a date here. Emily and I are working on it, but we're doing an open pickleball and walk and talk. Super low impact, just hang out with other people, maybe play some pickleball, maybe go for a walk. So we're going to figure out a park to do that at. And then August, you guys all know that August 6th is the Saints game. So we're running that one back. So last but not least, if you're interested, if you're not a C9er and you're interested in learning more, grab one of those sheets over there. If you want to grab one of Maggie's North Node coasters to learn more about that, grab some stuff on the way. Otherwise, we've got the space here while we wrap up. All right, thanks everybody.